We're tackling one of the most personal and, yeah, polarizing debates in modern India: love marriage versus arranged marriage. And look, this isn't about picking a winner. It's about getting real and looking at the uncomfortable truths on both sides of the fence.
So the argument against love marriage, it usually kicks off with a sharp critique just like this one. The idea that the whole thing is built on a foundation of sand, a fleeting, intoxicating feeling that has no chance of surviving the realities of a lifetime together.
But the comeback is just as pointed, isn't it? It suggests that the stability we see in arranged marriages isn't really a sign of success at all. It's a symptom of social pressure and a deep-seated fear of the consequences of walking away.
So what this really boils down to is a fundamental clash of values. I mean, what's the ultimate goal here? Is it about individual freedom? About your emotional choice above all else? Or is it about creating familial stability and a kind of predictable, managed realism?
You've got one side that champions individual choice, right? The belief that you have to own your outcome, for better or for worse. Then you have the other side arguing for realism, saying that a family's perspective can filter out risks that your emotions will blind you to. It's really a battle between the promise of a high-risk, high-reward emotional truth and the assurance of a stable, carefully managed commitment.
The accusation against the traditional model is blunt. It's that you're essentially trapping people in a life they didn't fully, truly choose for themselves, prioritizing duty over any chance at personal happiness.
And the retort is just as sharp, that the modern way is nothing more than a reckless bet, a huge gamble on feelings that have absolutely no guarantee of lasting past that first spark of attraction.
Okay, but let's step back from the arguments and look at the reality on the ground. Because despite this intense debate, especially in cities, the data is pretty clear. In India, roughly 80% of marriages are still arranged. This isn't some relic of the past. It is still the dominant practice.
And this is where it gets really interesting. When you look at the divorce rates, the stats are pretty eye-opening. We consistently see a rate of less than 10% for arranged marriages. Compare that to a much higher and frankly much wider range for love marriages. But these numbers, as stark as they seem, force us to make a really critical distinction.
We have to be absolutely 100% clear here. For this entire discussion, what we're talking about are consensual arranged marriages. Where families might suggest and help out, but the final, undeniable yes or no belongs to the two people involved. This is not the same thing as a forced marriage. That involves coercion, it strips away your choice, and it's a straight-up human rights violation. We can't confuse the two. Ever.
The core argument for love marriage, you'll notice, almost always comes back to this one idea: emotional safety. The belief that when you choose your own partner, based on a real connection and affection that's already there, you get a kind of security that nothing else can provide. But research shows that this whole idea of emotional safety is, well, it's a lot more complicated. Fascinatingly, studies that looked at couples in both types of marriages found that both groups reported significant levels of global distress. The problems were just different. You had everything from communication breakdowns to sexual dissatisfaction across the board. The point is, neither path comes with a perfect guarantee of happiness.
And this is the point where even the most passionate defenders of love marriage start to show a little doubt. It's that quiet admission that passion, by itself, might not be enough to get you through the really unromantic parts of life. The bills, the chores, the family drama.
And here's the thought that might just pull the rug out from under you. What if the so-called success of arranged marriage isn't about some ancient wisdom at all? What if it just works because the expectations are managed from day one? There's no dizzying romantic high, so there's no spectacular crash that follows.
And that idea perfectly illustrates what a lot of studies are now suggesting, that long-term fulfillment in a marriage might have less to do with how it starts and a lot more to do with the skills that a couple builds together. Things like actually communicating, providing real emotional support, and learning how to handle conflict. These are skills you learn, not conditions you start with.
This brings us right back to the question of risk. The pro-arranged view would argue that the hope you invest in a love marriage is a beautiful, precious thing. But man, when it fails, the cost is just emotionally devastating.
But the counter to that is that an arranged marriage charges a different kind of price. It's like a low, steady emotional interest payment. That lifelong nagging question of what if? The potential for a life of quiet resignation instead of a real, joyful partnership.
So, after looking at the arguments, the data, all the messy nuances,
We're ending this by turning the spotlight right back around. The most important questions here aren't for us to answer. They're for you. They're about what these two paths reveal about all of us. So let's start with the modern view. If choosing for love is the ideal, the superior path, then why does the freedom of that choice and the full weight of being responsible for it cause so much anxiety? And now for the traditional side. If this path really offers so much stability and safety, why do we hear endless stories of people feeling confined, feeling trapped, feeling like they're living a life for someone else?
And this one cuts a little deeper, let's be honest. Are we really searching for the freedom to choose? Or are we just looking for a system that gives us someone or something else to blame if it all goes wrong?
When it all comes down to it, what is the actual end goal we're chasing here? Is it the unpredictable, passionate, messy journey of love? Or is it the security of a lifelong social and economic contract, a kind of insurance policy?
And maybe that's the real uncomfortable truth. Neither path is a solution. They're just different starting lines. And success or failure isn't baked into the system you choose. It's about the work you put in. Which leads us to the final, piercing question. If it doesn't work out, will you have the courage to admit that the outcome was yours and yours alone?
All right, everyone, thanks again for joining us on the Duo Dialogues. And stay tuned for more deep dives coming soon.
See you next time.